Today I'm sharing a fun beach-themed frame with a faux weathered wood technique. I'm using Activa's Activ clay, which is a great earthen-based clay, to create the faux weathered beechwood effect on this frame. I started by rolling out enough of the clay to cover the front of the frame, and I'm going to roll it on a piece of parchment paper so that it doesn't stick to the surface. And I rolled it till it was a little less than 1/4 of an inch thick. Once the clay was rolled out, I wanted to give it a distressed look, so I used a clay tool with this little wire brush, which is a texturizing tool, and just very lightly dragged it across the surface of the rolled clay in a random pattern. Some of it's more and then some of it's less in some areas, but we want it to be very random. Measure the width of the outer edges of the frame that you want to cover, and go ahead and measure the same distance on the textured clay. And I used a long clay blade to make that slice. It makes it a little easier to cut the clay into the sections for the front of the frame. To give the effect that the beechwood was sort of broken off of something, I used that same texture tool to make an irregular edge on either end of each strip of clay for the frame. Roll some additional clay and then cut 2 just untextured pieces to fit on the sides of the frame between the top and bottom pieces. These are just pieces that are going to be covered, but they bring it up to the same height as the top and bottom. Now it's time to glue the pieces to the frame. I put on some of the mixed media glue and then went ahead and put the top and the bottom pieces on and those 2 side pieces to fill in the area on the sides. And then I placed the shorter pieces for the left and right sides on top of those flat pieces. I did scratch up the bottom of each piece and the top of the flat pieces just a touch to help them adhere to each other. To make the embellishment for the frame, I rolled some clay again to about a little less than 1/4 of an inch and then impressed it with an uninked stamp. I'm using this Seahorse stamp from Judykins. Once the image was impressed, I used a craft knife to carefully cut out all of the excess clay from around the stamped image. Activ clay is an air dry clay, so it will completely dry without use of an oven. All you need to do is let your Seahorse and your frame dry for about 24 hours to make sure they're thoroughly dry before moving on to the next step. Now it's time to add some color. I used a dark gray and 2 shades of blue. I started with a coarse dry brush and dry brushed onto the wood surface some of the dark gray. I didn't want to completely cover the frame, just scatter the color here and there. And then I added touches of both shades of blue, just small amounts, to give that blue-gray cast that you see in weathered beechwood. I let that paint dry thoroughly. Then I went ahead and used the gray to paint the inside edge, the outer edge, and the back of the frame. Go ahead and lift up the bottom extending stand and the little hanging tab of your frame and paint beneath those too, so that they're all a uniform color no matter which way you decide to use your frame. Let that dry thoroughly. To further age the weathered wood, I created a whitewash with a small amount of acrylic paint. I used white and some water, and then I took the brush and applied a light coat over all of the wood areas. While the whitewash was still wet, I took a paper towel and gently wiped it away, just allowing that wash to sort of mute the colors beneath a bit and to recess into some of those areas that we created with the tool, the texture tool. I went back and applied a little more here and there as desired until I got the random weathered effect that I wanted. Then I added a touch of that same whitewash to the inside and outside edges of the frame and to the back. For the Seahorse, I gave the front and the sides a coat of the bright salmon paint and let that dry thoroughly. Then I whitewashed the Seahorse in the same way that I did the wood and let that dry thoroughly. I wanted to bring out the fine details that the clay did hold that came from the rubber stamp, so I used a little bit of iced espresso metallic luster, sort of a dark brown, on my fingertip, just to lightly accent those details and bring them out a little bit on the Seahorse embellishment. Lastly, I used a little bit of the adhesive to mount the Seahorse to the left side of the front of my frame. And now it's ready to add a favorite picture from our time at the beach.